Good morning, Miss W's class. I'm so glad I'm here to be able to do another video for you. So I'm going to read a book called Rocket Writes a Story by Tad Hills. And Tad Hills is the author of our story. All right, let's quiz you. Let's see. Tell me, what is this part of the book? You're right, the spine. What is this part? You're right, the back. And what is this part? The front. You're right. Rocket writes a story. All right, here's another question I'm going to tell you. Let me get to it. What is this part of the book? The title page. You're right. Rocket Writes a Story by Tad Hills. All right, let's begin. Pay attention because I might ask you some questions. And I'm also going to tell you an activity you can do with mommy, daddy, brother, or sister at the end. So here we go. Rocket loved books. He loved to read them to himself or sit quietly by his teacher, the little yellow bird. Do you see the little yellow bird? Yep, there he is, right there. As she read them aloud. Rocket even liked the way books smelled. When he opened a new book, it smelled like a place he had never been to, like a friend he never met. The little yellow bird agreed. Books are inspiring. They make me sing. Rocket loved words too. After snack time, his teacher would say, Rocket, why don't you use that nose of yours to sniff out new words? And off he'd go. He'd fetch some nice words like buttercup and bug and feather and nest. I'm looking for words, Rocket would announce to everyone who would listen. Do you see the nest? It's in the tree. Right up there. Rocket always brought his words back to the classroom and wrote them down. The little yellow bird would help him spell the tricky ones. And then they'd hang them on the word tree. Sometimes the bird added their own words to the collection. This one is small, but I promise it'll come in handy, she'd say. Magnificent, chirped the little yellow bird once the tree was covered. Now what shall we do with these splendid words? Rocket thought all afternoon. He had an idea. What do you think his idea is? What do you think he's going to do with all those words? Any guesses? You think he might write a story? Well, let's see if you're right. Rocket left school that day with a very waggy tail. I'm going to write a story, he declared to Fred and Emma. My story will be an adventure about a great wide world, he told a butterfly. I will use many words, he explained to Mr. Barker. Hello up there, he called as he passed the tree where he found the word nest. I'm going to write a story. See. The next day, Rocket returned to his classroom. It was time to begin. He looked down at the blank page, and the blank page looked up at him, but no story would come. Do you think he was having a hard time trying to decide what to start with? You're right. I think he is. At snack time, Rocket gave up. I don't know what to write, he told his teacher. Don't worry, the little yellow bird replied. One of the hardest parts of writing is coming up with a good story. But it's one of the most fun, too. Perhaps you want to write about something you've seen. A bug? Asked Rocket. Yes, sang the teacher. Stories need good characters. Or what about something that happened to you? Or something you really enjoy? My favorite stick, suggested Rocket. Of course, said the bird. Or you could write about something that inspires you. Inspires me? Asked Rocket. Yes, something excites you, the little yellow bird sang. What would you write your story about? What makes you excited? Keep thinking. Rocket took a walk and looked for inspiration. He thought about friends he knew he knew and places he'd been. He stuck his nose in the air and sniffed the gentle breeze. And there it was, a delightful smell of pine needles and feathers. Inspiration. For the rest of the morning, he thought about feathers and pine needles and feathers. That afternoon, he started to write. You see his little nose? He's sniffing. What did he smell again? You're right, the pine needles. In the evening, Rocket followed the beautiful smell until he found himself at the tree with the nest. Hello again, he called into the branches. Is anyone home? He heard rustling from above, but no one answered. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I must tell you that you smell very nice. Very inspiring. May I ask who you are? Still nothing. Perhaps I'll come back at a more convenient time, he said, and trotted off. That night, as Rocket watched the stars, he thought about feathers and a nest in a pine tree. He thought about his story and his collection of words. On his way to school the next day, Rocket was surprised by what he saw. A brand new word, he said, and it's always written down, it says. He tried to sound the word out. Ow, came a quiet voice from the branches. It says owl. That's me. Thank you, Owl, Rocket called. I'm always looking for words, and this one's a beauty. Do you see the owl? You're right. There he is. Rocket ran all the way to his classroom. O-W-L. Owl. Now there's a word you don't hear every day, chirped the little yellow bird. Only 3 letters, but what a word. It was a present, explained Rocket, and he added the new word to his story. I'm writing a story about you, Rocket announced proudly to the owl the next morning. The owl poked her head out of her nest, and the first time Rocket saw her friendly face, her big round eyes blinked. Rocket blinked like feathery tufts. About me? She asked softly. Would you like to come down and hear? Asked Rocket. Thank you, but I think I'll listen from my nest, the owl answered. So Rocket cleared his throat and began to read. Once there was an owl. She smelled like flat feathers and pine needles. She lived in a tree. The owl's eyes widened. Is there more? There will be, said Rocket. Is the owl excited about a story? She is. You're right. Why is she excited about a story? Because it's about her. You're right. And each day, Rocket worked on his story. He wrote words down and crossed words out. When things were going well, he wagged his tail. When he didn't know what to write, he growled. Sometimes he drew pictures for his story or took a walk in the meadow to look for inspiration. The little yellow bird encouraged him. Remember, stories take time, she'd say. She wanted to know more about the owl and asked Rocket questions. Why do you think the owl wouldn't come down? What color is her beak? What does she do every day? So the little yellow bird is trying to give him ideas for his story. Do you hear that? What kind of ideas do you hear? You're right. Trying to ask what the owl is doing and why she won't come down. Good thinking. You're listening. Rocket wanted to know more about the owl. He visited her tree often and read her his story, which changed every day. The owl was captivated, and when Rocket stopped, she would always ask, then what happened? Do you see the owl? Has she come down from the tree? You're right, she has. She's getting brave. At last, the day came when Rocket knew he was finished. What a fine story, chirped the little yellow bird after she read it. Rocket ran to Owl's pine tree. It's done, he called. Come, listen. Is he excited to read his story? You're right, he is. He's proud. And so down and down came the owl till she was right beside Rocket. There she is. Then Rocket began to read. He read about an owl with friendly eyes and a beak the color of a buttercup. She lived in the nest high in the tree on the edge of the meadow and smelled like pine needles and feathers. She liked to nap in the daytime and listen to stories. Branch by branch, the owl came down from her nest. Rocket read. She was shy, but she was brave too. Suddenly, Rocket stopped. He wrote something on paper, then began to read. One day, the owl came all the way to the ground and became my friend. The owl blinked. Can there be one last sentence? She asked. Can you say, and the owl liked the story very much? What a perfect ending, said Rocket. And it was. The end. All right, I have some questions to ask you. What was the dog's name? You're right, Rocket. What animal was the teacher? A little yellow bird, you're right. What did Rocket put on the tree at the beginning of the story? Words. You're right. He had a word tree. When he was excited and had lots to say in his story, what did he do with his tail? He wagged it. You're right. When he didn't know what to say, what did Rocket do? You're right. He growled because he wasn't happy. And who was in the tree? Owl. You're right. What did Al finally do at the end of the story? He came down and he was friends with Rocket. You're right. He was brave. You're absolutely right. So just like Rocket wrote a story, I'm going to encourage you and challenge you. That means I'm going to give you a task to see if you can accomplish it and finish it, to write a story. You can take Post-its, and you can write words like, hey, I'll write a word for you to do. I'm going to write the word chair. So see how I wrote the word chair? And what you can do is you can even stick the paper to the back of the chair. And you can do that all around your house. You can write words, and you can get mommy and daddies and brothers and sisters to help you write the words on paper and then stick them to the chair. And then when you're all done, you can even collect them and then get mommies and daddies or brothers and sisters to help you write a story with the words that you came up with. I could give you a starter. You can start your story once upon a time, or you can start there was a boy, or there was a girl, or there was an animal. You can start your story however you want, and you can ask your brother or sister, mommy or daddy as well. I can't wait to see your story. If you give it to mommy and daddy when you're all done, maybe they can email it to me so I can read your story, because I would love to see the story that you come up with. It was so good to read a story to you, and I hope you have a great day. Love you guys and miss you. Bye.